But anyways, if you take something you have good reason to think is someone else's property, so good reason, let's just say reason, then what happens? That is stealing. And what do we know about stealing? It's wrong. Thank you. Let's clarify that. Myers had no good reason to think that the compost, this is such a weird thing. Who goes around stealing compost? Anyways, compost in the public garden was anyone else's property, so no good reason, so no R. Can we conclude anything from this evidence so far? No, this does not do anything with this chain, right? This is like a game. It's like not R leads to nothing. Okay. So it was not wrong. Therefore not W. This is a classic what? False contrapositive. Yep, right? Here's the if-then statement. If R then W, the contrapositive is if not W, then not R, but they said if not R, then not W, right? Okay. So the argument is flawed. By the way, you guys remember what this condition is called right here, the R condition? It's got a name. Sufficient condition. And this one right here? Necessary condition. What's this one? This is a trick question. Both. Intermediate. Yeah. Intermediate conclusion. Nope. No, that's okay. Nope. So this is both because it's a necessary condition for this and it's a sufficient condition for that. Okay. So this is sufficient. This is both. This is necessary. So if we were to describe this in LSAT terms, the argument treated a sufficient condition as if it were a necessary condition, right? Because if this had been in the necessary spot, then negating it would have negated the sufficient. But they switched it around. Answer choice C takes a condition that by itself is enough. What's enough mean? Sufficient, right? Takes a condition that by itself is sufficient to make an action wrong. This is sufficient to make an action wrong. To also be necessary in order for the action to be wrong. Yep. This argument treated this sufficient condition as if it were necessary. So, that's their mistake. Which answers were we debating here? None. None whatsoever, Ben. Just wanted to talk about it, throw it up there on the board.
I picked E.
E! Gwen, you come and confess. This is good. I'm still on the sheep farmers. Hold on. Concludes that something is certainly someone else's property when there is merely good but not conclusive reason to think that it is someone else's property. Does it conclude that something is certainly someone else's property?
No.
It says that Myers had no good reason to think that the compost in the public garden was someone else's property. It doesn't ever get into that issue of whether it actually was. It just talks about his state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't care because the argument didn't really deal with the actual reality. It's just about if you have good reason and you take it, then it's stealing. So whether it actually is doesn't matter. Okay. Any others that were tempted by here?
I picked A.
A. Okay. Confuses a factual claim with a moral judgment. What did you think the factual claim was, and what did you think the moral judgment was?
I got frustrated with all the other answer choices, and so I decided that the first sentence, they state it like a factual claim, but maybe it's just a moral judgment of the lawyer.
Oh, okay. Does that matter?
No.
Doesn't matter because it's a premise. If the lawyer had said, so and so thinks that if you do this, then you do that, then we could say, hey, that's no longer a factual claim. That's just the judgment of that person. But when the lawyer asserts it just outright, it becomes something we have to accept as true. If the lawyer had said, by the way, or not by the way, but just said, the lawyer just said, the world is getting extremely colder. And we're all thinking, it's not getting cold, it's getting warmer, right? It doesn't matter, because if as a premise, you just accept it.
Unless he said, I think that if you take something.
Yeah, I think that the world is getting extremely colder, or I think, or so and so thinks, or
You
it's
stated it like a fact, so it's a fact.
it's a fact.
Okay.
It's one of the weird things about the test. If you try to support something, it actually becomes weaker. But if you just say it outright, then you have to accept it and we move on. Now that's not true for conclusions, right? Conclusions are always up for debate. But evidence, you just have to accept. All right.